Good evening, everybody. It's Finance and Personnel Committee meeting 6:15 on September 4th. Item number 1 is call to order and roll call. Sean McAllister present.
Mike Milkey here.
Dan Stevens present.
Excellent. Item number 2, consideration and action on minutes from the previous meeting.
Here, I move that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Mike to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item number 3, public input limited to 3 minutes per individual. Second call for any public input. Third and final call for any public input. Item number 3 is closed. Item number 4, 2024 general fund financials. Sabrina.
Thank you, Chair. In your packets, starting on page 1 is the general fund financials. Pages 1 through 3 show the balance sheet for the general fund. Then starting on page 4 is the budget report for the general fund. If I can draw your attention to page 6, our total year-to-date revenues are $10,309,302.65. Our current budget is at $11,611,451. We do have 11.21% remaining to hit our total budgeted revenues. I'm very confident that we will hit those revenues with the last 5 months of the year here, because this does only go through July 31st. As of July 31st of 2023, we were at 8.27. So a little behind where we were at last year, but I still feel confident in where we are. Then if I can draw your attention to page 18, I believe, sorry. Page 18, this tells us our total expenditures. Year to date, we do have 44.04% remaining for our total expenses. Last year at this time, we were at 45.06. So pretty close to where we were at for 2023. Otherwise, I don't have any big updates regarding the general fund.
Any questions? No questions? No.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 general fund financials and place on file.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Dan to approve and place on file the 2024 general fund financials. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, 2024 Omni Center financials.
All right, next in your packet, starting on page 19 is the Omni Center financials. Pages 19 and 20 show the balance sheet for the Omni Center. Sorry, pages 19 through 21 show the balance sheet. Starting on page 22 is the budget report for the Omni Center. As of July 31st of 2024, we have 24.34% remaining to hit our total budgeted revenues. I feel confident that we will hit that budgeted revenue of $719,240. Coming in the next couple of weeks is their annual MMA, as well as the fall craft fair, and all of that still have to happen. So I feel very confident that we'll hit our total budgeted revenues. Then as in regards to expenses, if I can draw your attention to page 24, our total budgeted expenditures remaining for the year is 38.15. As of July 31st of 2023, we were at 31.98. So we're actually trending ahead of where we were in 2023. And just a reminder, 2023, we did end up having a surplus in the Omni Center. So I'm hopeful that we will be in that same position this year.
That's excellent. Thank you. Any questions?
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2024 Omni Center financials.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Mike to approve the 2024 Omni Center financials. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 6. You again.
Back to me, thank you. So in your packets, tonight on page 25 is a memo from myself, and then on page 26 shows the scoring. We did have 6 proposals for the banking services RFP. We did review all 6 proposals. We did interview 4 final candidates, being Citizens State Bank, Associated Bank, Bremer Bank, and State Bank Financial. All had very nice interviews based on scoring and services. We felt it was best to stick with Bremer Bank, which is where we've been for the last 5 years.
Do you need a motion or is that just?
Yes, I need a motion to approve it to Bremer Bank.
Yeah, you would just,
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the banking services request for proposal results, selecting Bremer Bank as our top choice.
And I'll second. Motion by Mike, second by Sean to approve the banking services request. Any further discussion? Dan?
so I see that there's a scoring system here with the different banks, but, and there's numbers in there, but those numbers don't correlate to anything on here. So what, can you tell me the criteria, like how would somebody get an 89 versus a 61? What are we looking at? And there's other factors that, like kind of what the cost or what the potential revenue from each bank is. And, I think there's a lot of factors that council is not able to really tell anything from looking at the scoring matrix. That said, I mean, Bremer's a fine bank and I've got experience with all 6 of these banks. There's a lot of good reasons to stay with Bremer. They invest a lot in the community. It's well run. But I would like a little bit more information on how the scoring came to be the scoring that it is.
Great question. So the scoring was based on, I believe we had 6 different categories, which included the presentation, included all of the factors that were aligned with the RFP in regards to cost, in regards to locality, in regards to another one was our representative that would be working with us. Some of the banks we would be calling a call service center. Other ones, we would have a person that we would call with any questions. I can definitely show you all of the detailed scoring sheets, but it's kind of been past practice that we just show the totals. But if you would like to see the details, I have them.
Yeah, I don't know if if we need to bring that, I can maybe do that offhand, but in terms of the financial cost or potential revenue, was Bremer the most optimal?
I would say in regards to cost, the top 4 were all very comparable. Very comparable. We don't actually sometimes even pay for our current services because we receive a credit based on the balances that we have in our account.
Yeah.
And they
I'm-
all gave similar interest rates for our money market accounts. So it was very comparable in regards to cost.
So I would just, I'm fine with going with Bremer, but I would be interested in seeing the details before next Tuesday.
The other thing I would note is that in regards to services, Bremer did offer more services than the other 3 banks. We do have an e-lockbox that is set up through Bremer Bank for all of our water bill customers that are set up on auto pay. So we receive a download file that we upload into our ERP system, and it's pretty seamless. Some of the other banks did not offer that. And when it came to hours, things of those natures, they were all pretty comparable.
Thank you. All right, the motion on the floor is to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right?
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 7. Special Project Fund.
I'm gonna hand this over to Amanda Jackson and Katie Aspenson.
All right, so Katie and I are proposing a new special project fund. We've entitled it the Resident Emergency Assistant Fund. But basically, the purpose of this fund would be to aid families or individuals that lives in homes in which the occupancy of the home may be threatened. So I don't know if you're familiar, but the inspection department does routinely inspect houses, in some cases due to issues that are present. Sometimes occupancy is removed on those houses. And so if you're familiar with that process, that can be a dramatic surprise for somebody, you know, that an inspection is scheduled, the city comes out and ultimately finds that perhaps they lack power, they lack water, or that part of the residence is in such disrepair that the city has to pull occupancy pursuant to state building codes or city enforcement codes. And so part of the reason we are proposing to set up this fund is to offer some assistance in those situations. And so there's a variety of ways that the funds could be expended. But the goal is essentially to get people into their house, to get them occupancy back and to not have anybody be unhoused. And so it could be used for hotel night vouchers. It could be used for professional cleaning services. Sometimes we see these situations have hoarding. Along the same lines, dumpster tipping fees, extermination services. Sometimes, you know, we have infestations, mold remediation services, payment of a utility bill. Sometimes they lose occupancy simply because their water or their power has been disconnected, or payment for a contractor to work on anything that's necessary and required in order to regain occupancy, or another, you know, sort of city pre-approved service. The proposal is that this would be paid directly to the service provider. So we would not actually be issuing the resident or the property owner a check. We would be paying the check directly to whoever is providing their service or providing a hotel voucher. We did consider whether or not to have an income requirement on this. We ended up deciding that we felt like it should be targeted at our lower income residents. And so we did fix it based on the adjusted household income being at or below 80% of the city's median income for a family. But that is kind of our proposal in a nutshell. If Katie wants to add anything, I'll.
Just to note that this would be a one-time fee for the life of the property. So they would have up to $2,500. That doesn't mean that that total amount can be expended. If they have need of $1,000 or $1,500, that would be all that they could gain. Basically, it's the means that we can do to prevent people from being unhoused. But in the same token, it's allowing opportunities to get people back in their homes quicker and also improving our housing stock. Oftentimes neighbors are adversely impacted and they want to see these properties moved and turned around as quickly as possible. And this is means to assist with that. So it can be for any detached single-family dwelling, twin-dow, or a mobile or manufactured home if they meet these particular requirements. So we are requesting that the Common Council allocate $15,000 from the city's undesignated special fund in order to begin this program. We also will then seek grant dollars to continue to build this fund to have it available for Onalaska residents in need. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
So, we'll get a motion.
Yeah.
Then, so I'll make a motion to approve the 15,000 to the Special Project Fund for Resident Emergency Assistance Fund, and then I'll retain my time.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Mike to approve the Special Projects Fund and allocating 15,000 toward it. Discussion, Dan.
So I'm understanding the funds are already in the city coffers in the undesignated fund, and we're just doing a transfer, so we don't have to go find the initial $15,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then if somebody were to apply, who's who decides or how does this get approved? Does it go through council, plan, city administrator? What's the mechanism to decide if somebody would qualify for this?
So if council were to approve the allocation, then we will write the grant application and the procedures and the processes for which they will go through to get this. I believe likely it's going to be, provided they meet all of the requirements, that city staff would be able to allocate the funds.
Okay, and then there's talk of grant writing in there, so if the funds are expended, will we be replacing those funds through grants or will those be potential tax dollars?
So our goal is that if council allocates the 15,000, we are going to go seek matching grant money to increase that amount in the special projects fund. And so that we would have a larger amount than the 15,000 to be able to disperse.
Okay,
But if the money does get expended and it's completely down to zero, then it may come that we would again re-ask to start the program over again. And it could be again through the use of the undesignated fund dollars.
what's the balance in the undesignated fund?
So the fund that we're talking about, this is the special project fund. So lots of things get ran through our special projects. For example, Park and Rec has an account through there, so does the police department. There are some undesignated dollars that are in there, or unassigned dollars, you could say, to kind of help the fund if a project were not to make money, then those dollars are there in that fund. But there is about $140,000 in that fund that has to be used for special projects. So either a current project that's in that fund, or a new project that would be set up.
I just think philosophically, this seems like this would be something that would help people in need, so that's good. My concern is if it became too successful of a project, would it become an onus on the city? And at some point, we'd either have to decide, do we keep funding it or cut it? And I don't know that it'll even get to that point. I'm just trying to think down the road.
I think that this only applies in a very limited amount of situations. And so, I mean, this is not necessarily something that we would be advertising, more like when we are in the situation where we are removing occupancy on somebody's house, then we would be advising them of the program availability. And so that is maybe a handful of houses in any given year.
So in the last 4 years or so, we've had 7 occupancy removals, for example, due to this. In that instance, the city was not able to provide any assistance. We partnered with La Crosse County, and they had some different programs that they were able to work with residents on. But this would be something for that short term where if they don't have power and they don't have a place to stay and they can't stay in a home that's been condemned, where do they go? And how can we get them in a place that's safe in the meantime while they're trying to get money together to go after these things?
Right, and we don't want them just getting a sleeping bag down on Great River Landing, and so, I mean, it makes sense, I mean.
What we've also find is with a lot of those programs, once occupancy is removed, a lot of program assistance is no longer available to them. And so this would be one where they would have some assistance available even though occupancy has already been removed.
I have no further questions.
Mike? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you both for putting this together. I think it's something that we can do that's nice to the community, and sometimes we're not always, I guess, sometimes we have to make hard decisions. This is something that I feel like we have the budget there and the designated funds. Seems like something great that we can do to offer, and I appreciate it.
And then my question too, I think you answered, but you said like over the past couple of years, just like a handful of times that you would anticipate that it could have been used?
Less than 10 over the last 4 years that we've removed occupancy.
Okay.
And in some of those instances, it could have been likely used for cleaning services, hotel stays, extermination services, mold remediation, utility bill payments. So everything we have on this list are needs that people have had when we've removed occupancy. So we're not starting from a wish list, so to say, we're starting from where we know people have issues. And that's why we're focusing on making sure we're paying the contractor specifically,
Mhm.
because then we know where our dollars are going. And they're not just being given out and then something happens to that money, that we can be held accountable for where those dollars are going.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. Diane, did you have anything? Yeah, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to commend staff for bringing this forward. I've had the experience of knowing a few of those families and somehow getting involved. So I'm aware of some of what your challenges have been. So I think this would be, you need another tool in your toolbox in order to do your job and make it a little bit of a softer landing for people. So I had 3 questions. One is, and I'll ask my questions and I'll let you answer when I'm done. I personally fully support the $15,000. My only question is, I'm certainly not trying to spend money, but my only question is, in light of just how much everything costs nowadays, whether or not the $2,500 is enough. Number 2, is this modeled after like any municipality, or like, are you drawing a parallel? And if so, like who or whatever? And 3, I think I heard you say that if a single property could only avail themselves to this one time. So you didn't say a person, I heard a property. So my question would be, so if I needed to avail myself of this and then took advantage of it, then I get back in, I eventually sell, and then someone else then buys my property and then they fall in hard times too, that would be my concern. So I'll let you answer. Thank you, Chair.
I think we're open to maybe not capping it on a one. I mean, I think the idea is that we don't want the same people coming back over and over. So to your point, if the property changes hands, I think we could be open to the possibility of that being used again. $2,500 probably is not enough. We talked a lot about amount. We looked at sort of some of the needs. Some of these, it definitely hits. It definitely helps with the dumpster and tipping fees. It will cover, sort of low-level extermination services. It will, it will cover in most cases what we've experienced as far as the payment of utility bills. I can tell you we've had a couple that have gone over that amount, but it should be at least enough to make a good faith effort to hopefully get their utility bill back online. I don't know that there's a perfect number though. And so we felt like this was sort of a fair number to get us started. And we can always, review it and adjust it in the future and come back to discuss that if needed. I feel like I'm missing a question.
We weren't able to find an exact program like this. I think honestly that if this is a program that gets funded and it works, it would be like a move for the city of Onalaska that other people would model after this program. We were able to find some emergency assistant programs. I believe there is one in Washington. And then throughout the country that do similar things. Typically it could be for utility billing and it's a certain dollar amount. It's usually tied to an income ratio. So those are where we picked up different pieces of the program. But in any case, if we were successful with this, we would be trailblazing a new program that in theory could be replicated that through other communities if we're successful.
Thank you. All right.
If I could just add something too.
Yep, Sabrina, then Rick.
Thank you. My only recommendation would be if this is the case of how we want to move forward with this program, that we would do it via resolution. Just for budget purpose, for audit purposes, that we'd have a resolution to designate those funds. And we would get an account number and all of that set up.
Yeah, if this moved ahead, we would have that ready for council.
Thank you. Thank you. Rick.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add too, just keeping in mind that this isn't is not an exclusive program only. It would be in conjunction with any other programs that would be available to individuals as well too. So, whether it's county or state or whatever other programs are available out there, this would complement those as well. So just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you all. All right, the motion on the floor is to approve. Any further discussion?
Should we amend it so there's language on there that would make it a resolution, or we'll just have staff take care of that next
Do
week?
that at council?
I think if you just approve the allocation, then we will draft the resolution.
So the motion on the
Just
floor.
let it stand, yeah.
Okay. Motion is to approve the 15,000. No further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. Item number 8, human resources update.
I can touch on this one. Amy Franson is out of the office this week, and so she submitted this particular memo. I don't have anything to add to this one, but I will also touch on the next one as well, which is part of her submission as well.
Thank you. Any questions on the memo? Nope. Item number 9.
So yes, this is one, Amy and I have had some discussion about this amongst other individuals as well too. As I think everybody knows, there was a compensation study done in 2020, 2021. And since that time, as indicated in the memo, there have been 40 internal adjustments, at least 40 internal adjustments done to the existing pay plan. But really what prompted this conversation was that there are a number of employees who are either at or approaching the top of the maximum pay scale. And what do we do with individuals in that scenario? So Baker Tilly, they did the original compensation plan, and going back to them, having a conversation with them, we had a Zoom call with them, and there were a number of different options. This actually was the most, from our perspective, most economical one. At just under $16,000, I think it was $15,750. But as you saw from the attachment, this is the process that they would follow. They would look at all the existing job descriptions. It wouldn't be an elaborate, everybody has to update their job descriptions and everybody has to jump through all these different hoops. They would require us to provide them with information as well as our existing job descriptions. They would evaluate them against other positions within the city and then decide, where they fall. They have a point system that determines where they would fall when it comes to where they on the pay grid. And so they would do that reassessment for us. They would provide us with the results of that, and then they would also provide us with what a potential cost would be. At that point in time, obviously, we would have to come back and have further conversation in regards to how and whether we can afford to implement or in what fashion we can do that. So this is, again, one of the lowest cost processes we could do in order to reassess where we're at when it comes to our pay scale. And so there is a request to that. There's some existing money in the, sorry, I'm just looking at the, I don't see it in the memo, but there is an account already that has money in it, and Sabrina can help me out with that. But there's already money that's been set aside that this does not need to come out of the general fund. So this is money that we do already have set aside.
Dan.
I'll yield the floor to Finance
Thanks.
Director Sabrina.
So this would come out of the general fund. We do have a fund balance set aside that's called City Study that has $45,270 in it. So we would move this $16,000 out of that designated fund at the end of the year. So it would decrease that balance. So just a heads up on that. So we could use those dollars. My biggest concern is what happens when they come and tell us you need to increase wages for all of these people, how that's going to impact our budget for 2025 and going forward.
And I will throw in there isn't necessarily an inclination that this would be impactful of the 2025 budget, more so on the 2026 budget is what we would be looking at. That's, I guess, from my perspective, the way I was looking at it, so.
So I have some concerns over this because this really looks and smells like a wage study. And having gone through that process before, I mean, if I wanted to torpedo morale at City Hall, the quickest way I could make that happen is with a new wage study. I mean, it looks like it's only 16,000, but that looks like I just have the feeling that this could grow into something bigger. And as Sabrina touched on, what if they find that there's if their findings are going to be different than what we're budgeted for, or going to create a big problem for us and then create issues where staff are saying, well, you paid money for this wage study, and my wages are here, but they should be here. And I'm just saying, having gone through this before, I just see this path fraught with pitfalls and if we go forward, there's going to be hurt feelings and we're going to create problems for ourselves that we may not have the budget to fix. So I have very big concerns. The 16,000, if that's what we had to do, and that just made us kind of, maybe we tweak something and it gets aligned a certain way, okay. But I got a feeling this is going to have a $500,000 price tag if we want to fix it. And that could be an issue.
Thank you. Question?
Amanda.
Yes, sorry.
I would just offer the point that I think that we already have morale issues, that when you have 40 adjustments over the course of 4 years, that creates morale issues. And, you know, when you have a wage system that hasn't been updated, so that, you know, I will acknowledge, I think is a failure of the city in that the current, you know, we did this and then we hit COVID and the world got a little strange and it wasn't a big focus at the moment. But that was a scale that should have been looked at every single year and better adjusted in the 4 years. Also, inflation hit, which sort of, you know, destroyed what little progress we made that year, which is very unfortunate. But I think you also run into liability if you just sort of put your head in the sand and you say that we, you know, might not have the budget for this, or we might not, because at some point between having employees fall off, but also just with all these adjustments, you start to end up with inequality within that pay scale. And then you create liability where if somebody sits and looks at this and says, okay, well, it looks like we have one department that's being paid more than another department, or we have certain positions that appear to be paid more, you know, there's a lot of room for exposure there. And so really it is good practice to update these on a pretty routine basis from anywhere from 4 to 6 years. You know, sometimes you can stretch that longer if you're updating them, you know, yearly in a better way, but unfortunately we haven't. And so I think to do this sort of like micro refresh, you know, at 16,000, yes, they're going to come back with some kind of a proposal that's likely going to result in, you know, a budgetary hit, but I don't think it will be what it was in 2020. We're not looking at a total reset or a totally new pay scale, but really just are people in the right spots? Do we need to extend this out? I think La Crosse is a good example. They did one recently where what they did was simply push the scale out. They dropped off the first couple of years, they moved it out a little bit, and everybody was just realigned. I think that's a good example of what this could be. But I think that if you don't do this, we'll have a different set of problems.
Well, I think no matter what we do, we're going to have some sort of problems, but did we not relatively recently, maybe in the last 4 months, talk about doing an internal study?
I think there was some discussion about whether the finance department would be able to take a look at it from when this was implemented and then do some adjustments going forward. I don't want to speak for Sabrina whether or not that there was ever even any time that would be allotted based on workloads to be able to do that. That was a brief discussion, I would say, yeah, some time ago. Also, you know, this one is a lower level. It's not a full-blown compensation study because it's not comparing to positions that are outside of the ones that we have. This is just an internal comparison amongst the positions that we have within the city. Industry standard, if I remember correctly, recommendation for a compensation study of some form or fashion is typically 3 to 5 years.
Diane? Sabrina, sorry.
I guess I'm not sure what is being asked of me in regards to this wage inequity situation. Can tell you the COLAs that have been given every year and compare that to cost of living if that's what you want. But I don't know what's expected. So I've not prepared anything. So I'm not sure.
To the best of my recollection, I think it was more of an HR department, not
Okay.
finance, but
Okay.
I
remember.
I can't recall the meeting per se, but
I was just very confused because I was like, did I not?
You're off the
supply
hook.
Something that was
Yeah.
needed.
And just to clarify, no, there was nothing that you were needed to be
Okay.
doing for today or for at any point in time. There was just a very brief discussion that was a possibility, but we never did pursue going that route. So.
Diane, you had something?
Thank you, Chair. If this goes forward, I think this will be my third or fourth one that I've been through, and I certainly understand and cannot disagree with Alder Stevens that these are never pretty. They just aren't. But I certainly cannot agree with our city attorney Jackson that to do nothing and stick our head in the sand, it's going to be even more costly. It'll be more costly in the form of bodies walking. So we're either way, it's not good. I think we just need to accept that going into it. But that's why we're in the positions that we are. We're supposed to be leading the city through this. And there's going to be times when there's going to be things that we're not going to like doing. And I think this is going to be one of these because can be very uncomfortable. But I think the most important thing that one of the most important things that I've learned in my time on council is we need to talk positions and not people. When we talk positions and not people, then you strip so much of the emotion out of it, and we can get a lot more accomplished instead of it becoming more of an emotional issue. But if I remember correctly, and I think one thing, and I haven't taken the time to look back when we did this 3, 4, 5 years ago, and I'm almost afraid to, but if memory serves me, we were promised that no, we were not promised that was going to be the last one we were ever going to have to do, but the council was promised that. And Baker Tilly said things were put in place. So this was going to be, someone would be looking at this every year. Things were in place. Things have to be in place from going forward. Whoever that involves, because we have to, my husband who worked at Train, and in the manufacturing world, the saying goes that if you don't keep up, you're going to get left behind. And we need to keep up. And that's any employer, in any situation, any type of employer, we have to keep up. I'm really disappointed that when we did have this the last time, 3, 4, 5 years ago, if I remember correctly, I know Alder Stevens was on, I guess just Alder Stevens, at least in the room. No, as far as in the room right now. I believe we were, and again, we had hard choices. Again, I think we were given like options A, B, and C, and I think we were only able to bring up certain populations, a certain percent or whatever, but I think there was still the what I call the oldie but goodies, the people who have been here for so long. I don't think we were ever able to bring them up like we needed to. So, but we also only had a set dollar amount that I believe had set aside earlier that year. So that's the dilemma we also have. So I'm game for this, but I think we all need to just go into this knowing that this is going to be difficult, but it's our job. And I think staff just needs to hang with us. But I'm going to expect, as one of 6, I'm going to be expecting this going forward, that we're going to be on a path of success, whatever that looks like. And secondly, I will say I'm happy that we are keeping the same vendors. I'm sure that maybe has helped a little bit with costs. I don't know, because I haven't asked behind the door questions, but I thought they did a good job before, but I'm going to support this come next Tuesday, but I think we need to have some rails in place going forward
Sabrina?
for a path for success.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you. I think my experience with pay scales and scoring and all of that, I think where the issues came, I don't think Baker Tilly failed. I think what happened is that there's been so many people that have been reorged or reevaluated and others that have not, right? So 41 people have been 40 people have been reevaluated. So then that changes things. So I think that's where the biggest issue is. And I think once we do get once Baker Tilly does evaluate it and gets people in place, I think we have to try to minimize those reorganizations and reclassifications unless there's truly a reason for it to happen. Because I see it in my own department and hear it from other staff, like, oh, this person got reclassed or got reevaluated. When are you going to do mine? Right? And then 40 people have had that done, and you think of non-union staff in City Hall, and there's about 100 of us. So it's a lot.
Amanda?
I would just add to Sabrina's issues, a lot of what we're seeing is compression issues with that. When people are being reorged, they may be being reorged very close to their supervisor. And so we're starting to see a lot of compression issues where we could have, managers who are making very minimally above, the people that they're overseeing. And so that's one of, I think, the challenges that this study will have to sort out.
Correct. I would agree with that as well.
A couple thoughts. Amanda touched on inflation. Inflation, I think we addressed through the cost of living increases, which I'm sure have fallen short. I think we got a little bit more aggressive this last time, but that shouldn't have any impact. Inflation should not have any impact on the scale judged from where it was when we did the last wage study. COLA should be able, if we're funding COLA, should be able to keep up with that. But my main concern is, thinking back on what happened last time, we came to a conclusion that sure enough, there was some problems and we needed to make things right. We had to fund a new structure, and that was a lot less than what we had. So if we come up with that again, and we're in a position where we have a choice, if we make everybody whole, then where does that come from? Because I do not want to do a wage study and then find ourselves in a position where if we make everyone whole, then we're gonna have to start cutting jobs to make that balance. I would rather keep everybody on board grumbling, but here with benefits and keeping the city running than having less people to do the same amount of work. And this would be an easy thing to do if there were an unlimited pot of money that, we could pay people everything for what they're worth, and then we could fulfill our function as a city. But that's not the reality. I mean, I'm willing to invest the $16,000 just to see where we're at. Hopefully it's just little tweaks. That would be great. But in the event that it's not, are we committed to reduce positions? Or are we committed to cut money from somewhere else? Like, what are we going to do if we find that we are really short? And that poses some problems. I'd kind of rather, the term stick your head in the sand, I'd kind of rather not open those doors, because I don't want to let anybody go because we're trying to recalibrate. So if there's a consensus with council on the direction, before supporting this, I'd kind of like to know what the overall plan is.
Just from my perspective, that's a difficult question to answer, not knowing what the results of the study is going to be. Once we get the results, obviously that will lead to other questions or other discussions. But you're correct. If it's a big fix, we're going to have to take a look at where's that money going to come from. Do you do the entire fix, so to speak, or do you do something on a smaller scale? There's so many options at that point in time that answering that question is going to be a challenge.
When we were not able to fix it as whole last time, people were not happy. And
I get that. Mhm.
and there were some people were really not happy, and we got calls at home from staff members, and they were just upset. And
Sure. Mhm.
um
And
with merit.
unfortunately, with any kind of a wage study like this, no matter what level of wage study, that's always going to be something that'll have to be dealt with to some extent, that you can never take it out. But as Amanda indicated too, and I get what you're saying, if we don't look at it and keep it the way it is right now and just kind of keep moving forward, but at some point will staff then be starting to take a look at the wages and be like, maybe somebody else is paying in a different wage or higher wage someplace else, and I'll go there instead. So it could go either way depending on how long we leave it as is.
What would you like from us? Would you like, I'm sorry, question?
I just wanted to just make a quick comment. So, when we're thinking about doing this study, you know, realistically, we're looking at promoting internal growth opportunities. So not capping someone, giving that growth opportunity out there, also leading to, in my opinion, I think that helps with retention. So, you know, by not doing this, we have the chance of losing people and having to pay extra money for training, development, you know, retrain people to follow kind of the way that we're doing this. So I can see the benefit to doing it because I think overall it leads to that. Granted, I've never been part of this before, so obviously it's new to me. So I know we have a lot of experience on the council that have been through this. So I might be a little naive, but I can understand where it's coming from. And I guess that's just my counter argument.
Cool.
Yeah, Diane and I don't agree on much these days, but I think we agree that wage studies will equate to pain. And but there's, you know, we want to pay our people fairly, so it's tough. It's not an easy answer.
So it is on the agenda for a motion to approve, which would move it to council for approval. So I don't believe there's actually been a motion made at this point. Which just for future references should probably happen before the discussion.
I'll make a motion for approval of the internal equity and pay plan review of non-represented positions for $16,000.
I'll second. Motion by Mike, second by Sean to approve the internal equity and pay plan review and move that to council for discussion. Any further discussion with our group? All in favor? Oh, sorry.
Alder McAllister, just wondering, for discussion, do you want this on non-consent then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm seeing everybody nod. Okay, yeah, let's do that, please. Thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion before voting? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Just gonna say no.
Okay. One opposed. Motion carried. Item number 10, adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second. Motion by Mike, second by Sean to adjourn at 7:02. My eyes are bad. 7:02. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all. Thank you.